India Carry 250 West. It's the main event time. Let's do it.
What's up, race fans? How felt that race in San Diego last night? Man, what a great night of racing that was. This Supercross season is shaping up to be one hell of a season, especially if you're an Eli Tomac fan, right? Last night was awesome. There were some surprises, actually, for me, at any rate. Some things happened I did not see happening. Some things happened that I definitely did see happening. And we're going to talk about all of that right now. To start with, let's talk about the 250 class a little bit. Man, I think this is going to be a hell of a year for the 250 class. I think most people kind of thought that Joe Shimoda might have the wind at his back last night, and I think he probably did. Unfortunately, man, that freak accident with the mechanic side and breaking two of his fingers. But how about the guts on that dude to just tape up his fingers, put that little thing on his wrist there, and get out there and ride. At the very beginning of the main event, he ended up bar-banging with somebody on his left hand. That had to hurt a lot, even if it didn't actually touch his hand. Just the banging like that has got to hurt a lot. So, dude, he's tough, man. I think he made it up to 7th place after being pretty far back, right? So, good on him. He knew he had to salvage some points. It doesn't take him out of the race by any means, or the points lead, or the fight for the points lead. But he knew he still, he had to make as many spots as he could last night, and he did that. So great for him. I guess, the letdown of the evening again was Hayden Deegan, right? I don't know what's going on with him, but I don't think this is the end of Hayden Deegan by any means, right? He started out pretty poorly. He got a bad jump off the gate, ended up pretty far back, and still made a lot of passes by the time the race was over. He still got himself up there on the podium, so good for him. But I think most people probably expect a little more from Deegan. But here's why I don't think he's through just yet, because Hayden Deegan, he talks a lot of crap, but he also knows that he has to back it up. And whereas some racers, when things aren't going their way, they start to flounder a little bit, right? But that's not Deegan's style. When things aren't going his way, he starts to send it. And so far, that has worked for him. 5-8 years from now, when he's a little bit older, maybe not so much. But for right now, when that dude is behind the curve, he knows how to dig himself out of a hole, right? So we're not done with Deegan yet. But let's talk about the race winner last night, JuJu Beumer. The kid is really, this is his second year in the pros, and he is really showing some number one, speed and talent, but number two, some brains, right? He thinks well on the track. Yesterday, when Cole got out to an early lead and Beumer was right behind him, it looked like, early on he made a couple of attempts to pass, but then he kind of settled back, and it looked like he might be going the way of the opener at Anaheim and just being happy to settle in behind Cole for a second place finish. But really, he was just waiting. He was seeing the lines, waiting for his chance to pounce, and he did, and it paid off for him. And he ended up building a little bit of a good gap between him and number two by the time he came across the finish line at the end of the night. So congratulations to Julian Beumer. I think we're going to see some great things out of him this season and seasons coming. He may be quite the challenge for Hayden Deegan, because he doesn't seem to get rattled the way Levi Kitchen and some of the other competitors get rattled by Deegan. But enough of that. Let's talk about the 450 class. Man, what a night of racing that was. And I couldn't be happier. I'm an Eli Tomac fan. And in my video last week after the opener, after seeing Eli go down, come in, start from last place and still make a 5th place finish, I said Eli Tomac will be the next Supercross champ. Mark my words on that. Mark my words. Eli Tomac will be running that number one plate at the end of the year. And last night he went a long way towards vindicating me and proving me right. I know it's only round 2, man, but I am a diehard Eli Tomac fan, and I am behind him all the way. And I truly believe he's going to win the season this year.
We'll talk about more about that in just a second. Okay, Chase Sexton, tough break for him, man. Got caught up early on and went down, had to fight his way back. In true Chase Sexton fashion, though, he was fast, and he still clawed his way back up to a 6th-place finish. And I'm not going to say anything about Sexton's racing last night. It just is one of those things that happened.
So great job, Chase. You did what you do. You got back up on the bike and you went fast, and you made up a whole lot of positions and ended up 6th. You, in my book, you gain nor lose any points, right? I think this one's a wash. We're gonna drop this race at the end of the year, right? Okay, let's see who else. Jason Anderson. Like I said last week, I love Jason Anderson. He's a great racer. He's a hard rider. He just doesn't have the speed. You know, he got a podium at Anaheim, and he'll probably get a couple more podiums this year. But in general, I don't see him on that podium too many more times this year. Right? Hunter Lawrence just having a bad go of it this year. I don't know if it's the bike or not. I'm not willing to say it's the bike. I don't know what's going on with them. My guess is some internal family squabbling, maybe. Who knows? But that's my guess. 2 riders that are always up on that top 5, top 7 finishers that had a great race last night. Kenny Roczen and Cooper Webb. Now, like I've said before, Ken Roczen, if he gets out front early, he is a threat. And come the end of the race, if somebody mounts a challenge, oftentimes he can dig deep, find a little bit of extra speed, and still come in on that 1st-place podium finish, right? But generally speaking, if he's not in the lead, Ken Roczen does not have the speed to pass people after the first half of the race and get himself up on that podium. It just doesn't happen. I'm not saying anything bad about the guy. I love him. I think he's a great racer. I love watching Ken Roczen race, but he just doesn't have that speed unless he's out front and he's got himself a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a cushion during the race, right? Which brings me to my next point. It was so fun to watch Roczen and Webb battle for so long because of the type of riders that they are. Ken Roczen is a very defensive rider, right? He can make his bike 6, 7 bikes wide, and he's very hard to get around. And he's a very smart rider, right? But Cooper Webb, he rides like he's got ice water in his veins. He's meticulous, he's very precise, and he knows exactly when to pass, when not to pass, and he is a hard dude to race against, which made it so fun to watch the 2 of them race all night long. I think once Webb passed Roczen, I think Roczen mounted a charge and passed him back one more time, maybe twice, but that was about it. But those 2, just because of the type of riders that they are, so difficult for either one of them to make much more ground on the other. So let's talk about how Webb and Roczen, in my opinion, affected the race between Eli Tomac and Jet Lawrence. Okay, so a couple of minutes into the race, Tomac started making his charge, getting up to the front, right? When he finally got to Webb, that gave Lawrence a chance to close up that gap a little bit, right? It took Eli a whole lot more time to get around Webb than it took Lawrence, right? Lawrence got by Kenny Roczen pretty easily. I think he did it in the whoops. And then, he was making up that time on Eli as Eli was trying to get around Webb. Tomac finally gets around Webb. Shortly thereafter, Lawrence gets around Webb. And here's where I see is the big takeaway from that race, right? Because last night, for the last 14 minutes of that race, Eli Tomac and Jet Lawrence had open track ahead of them to battle, right? Now, yes, they occasionally came up to lappers, but for a good majority of the last 14 minutes of that race, they had the track to themselves. And Jet Lawrence, while he was able to get close to Eli, he never got in striking distance of Eli, right? I was a little concerned. Jet is a young kid, and he's fast on a motorcycle. Eli Tomac is, of course, Eli Tomac, but he's older,
and we haven't seen yet what this season looks like for him. And he had 14 whole minutes he had to fend off Jet Lawrence. And Jet Lawrence never showed Eli Tomac a wheel in those last 14 minutes of the race, right? Yeah, he did close up the gap a little bit, but if you notice, Eli had a fast half of that track, and Lawrence had a fast half of that track. And Lawrence would start to close up the gap, but then you get around to the half of the track after that sand section where Eli would, especially in those whoops, he was so fast through those whoops that Eli would always build back up that 1.5 lead. Jet would, on the other side of the track, he'd bring it down to about, 3/4 of a second, maybe a second. Eli would pull it back away a little bit after on the second half of the track. And Lawrence never really could get to Eli's back wheel. So the two of them basically had almost the exact same speed, right? And you can bet that after the race, Lawrence was thinking about that. Lawrence is not a guy who settles for second place, right? He is a guy that will settle for sixth place, right? If he just can't, if it's not worth it to take the risk, he'll settle for sixth place. But if he's in second place, 1 second behind the leader, he's not a settle for second place guy, and he could not make that happen. I don't believe for a second that he wasn't riding for everything that he was worth. And you bet that he is thinking about that right now, that he could not catch Eli Tomac. So I don't know. We'll see what happens next week. I think my prediction for next week at Anaheim, I believe that Tomac will be on the podium again. Now, he has historically had a hard time with Anaheim, but the way he's riding right now and the way that Yamaha is set up, I don't know, man. He just seems unstoppable. The guy looks like he's 18 again. He looks so happy to be on the track, even when he's not way out in first place. He's loose and he's all over that bike. And he's just having a great time out there. So I don't know. I don't think he's very stoppable right now. I foresee Tomac, if not in first place, I bet you he gets a podium finish next week in Anaheim too. I don't know about Jet Lawrence, honestly. He showed me some stuff last night I didn't see coming. But I don't know about Jet Lawrence podium, getting a podium finish in Anaheim next week. Very well could happen. I would not be surprised if it does. But I see Tomac, I see Sexton on that podium next week. You better believe Sexton's going to be hungry. I also see, man, I don't know. Maybe a Ken Roczen. That is the kind of track that Ken does very well on. We'll see. But it could even be Hunter Lawrence. Who knows? But I definitely see both Eli and Chase Sexton on the podium next week at Anaheim too, but we will see. Well, hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I don't know if you agree with me or not. If you didn't agree with me, please leave some comments in the comments section. Let me know what you think. Where am I going wrong here? Where am I off? If you did agree with me, love to hear from you as well. I think a lot of people are really rooting for Eli, and it's so nice to be such a fan of someone, and they don't let you down, man. He is just crushing it this year. I see it continuing, and I'm super happy to be an Eli supporter. So we'll see what Anaheim 2 has to offer next week, right? Okay. Again, thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, please give me a great big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you get notified whenever I put out any new content. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Until next week at Anaheim 2, sure to be a great race. And I hope to see you guys out on the trail sometime. Good night.